Hi friends, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel, Sunset Bow Tarot. So I figured since we are about a third of the way into June, it was finally time for me to make my May favorites video. I hadn't made videos in a while, just to sort of address what's been going on because I have not addressed it in a video yet. And part of the reason why I had been relatively quiet in terms of creating my own content on social media for the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I can't move forward without addressing what's been going on in terms of the murder of George Floyd, which took place in my hometown, as well as the murder of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, so many others that, we know about and have talked about, and so many others that we don't know about and don't talk about. It's been an absolutely really pivotal time, I feel, in terms of growing awareness and understanding of this problem. And I feel like I am one of those white folks who, whilst having been aware of this and been angry about it for a long time, never really did the follow-up work of actually taking any action about it, which is something I am completely culpable for and need to remedy and address now. So I don't feel like I'm gonna necessarily be super eloquent about this in a video. I do want to direct you to a post I did on my community page, which I will link down below, talking a little bit more about my thoughts on this, sharing some resources as far as places to donate, and some other fantastic videos by people of color in the tarot community, Black women, I should say, in the tarot community, and also some really good videos that were done by Tail Raven Tarot and Kellyanne Maddox on how to be a better ally. I'd also really love it if you took a look at my Instagram page, because at the top of my page right now I have a highlight called Resources, which is a collection of all of the stuff that I've shared in my stories over the last couple of weeks, and there is a lot of information there that's been created by people who are very educated, very knowledgeable, and a lot smarter than me on these issues. And there's a lot of fantastic information about anti-racism, books to read, organizations to support, movies and shows to watch, advice for how to be a better ally for people like me, for white people who feel like they're coming late to this movement and need to do more, so much more, to be good allies. So I would really ask, if you haven't looked at some of that, to take a look at some of it. Please follow and support some of those folks whose content I've shared, and make it a point to pay attention to what we're being told, but also to be vocal in terms of not just lifting up and amplifying the voices of Black creators, but also making sure that we're having the difficult conversations in our own lives with people that we know, the scary conversations with friends and family, calling people out and trying to spread some education about these issues and helping people to understand the great necessity of doing this anti-racist work. And I'm not going to say the great necessity of doing it right now, because it's always been a necessity, and quite frankly, I've been failing at that for a very long time, and that is just the reality. So I just want to try to say that I am expressing a commitment to doing that work now, and to call me out if you see me doing something wrong. And not that that's anybody's responsibility. I need to be calling myself out too, but that, please don't be afraid to tell me if if there's something you want to tell me about how I'm doing. So yeah, again, I don't feel like that was a particularly eloquent way of putting any of that, but yeah, that is what I wanted to say to start this video out, just because I hadn't addressed this in a video yet. So with that though, you know, there's still fun things to talk about in the world too, you know, and part of like being a human living in the world is being aware of these issues, but also living our lives in enjoyment and sharing joy and happiness and enjoying the things that that we love to do. And so, you know, I'm going to continue making my favorites video here and sharing some of these things with you guys. These are things that have brought me joy and excitement and fun over the last couple of weeks and the last month. And so, yeah, let's talk about it because it's fun and we all need some fun. So I'm just looking at my list of stuff to talk about, and this video is probably going to be really long. So I'm just going to try to speed through this as much as I possibly can. But let's start by talking about decks that I have been using and enjoying and used and enjoyed over the month of May. So the first one that I want to talk about is one that I talked about in my last favorites video, and that is the Herb Crafters Tarot. And this is a deck, here are the backs. This is a deck that I have been using so much. I feel like I retroactively need to go back to my Hug Decks video and add this deck in, because this has unquestionably become like a hug deck for me. Why is this upside down? I don't know. This deck is so nurturing and I have absolutely loved using it. I can't recommend it more highly. I did a full walkthrough of this deck that I'll direct you to if you want some more information on the structure and, you know, the way that this deck is set up. What I will say is that I was a person, you know, going into this deck who wasn't sure about how well I would work with a deck that's based on plants and based on botanicals, because I feel like I'm not super educated about those things. And despite that, I have found this deck really easy to work with and very educational and just beautifully nurturing. So what I will recommend is checking out my walkthrough if you're interested in seeing how this deck is structured, because I think it's structured in such a way as to make it really, really usable, and it's really well thought out, and it's just a really wonderful deck. So this is the kind of thing where even if you're sort of debating how well you think you might be able to work with an herbal deck or a botanical deck, it's an absolutely great one, and it's worked out beautifully for me. So I really, really love it. So that is, again, the Herb Crafters Tarot. Something else that I have worked with recently has been my Sawyer's Nature Portals tiles. I also did a walkthrough of these, so I will also link that up in the cards. But these have also felt extremely nurturing to work with. They're just absolutely beautiful. They're these wood tiles that were created by Jamie Sawyer of her Nature Portals cards, and they have just really wonderful, bold animal illustrations on them, and they've been just a wonderful way to work with animal energy. So these have actually become kind of a consistent practice for me in terms of drawing one of these like once a week and having an animal energy to work with. Right now my animal is the green heron. That's the one that I'm working with right now. But I did end up actually getting the guidebook / journal for this deck / set of tiles, and I've been using that. So these have also been really wonderful, and I talked about this a little bit in my walkthrough, because these are all animals that, if you, like me, live in North America, these are all animals that you will likely have personal experience with or have experienced in the wild, or are just generally very familiar with. Again, that's a very North American centric view, but if you do live in North America, this deck has a lot of animals that you will know and be very familiar with. So it's a really wonderful deck from that standpoint. If you're interested in, I keep calling it a deck. I have the set of tiles. It also comes as a deck. But if you want to work with animals from that standpoint of being animals that you have strong personal associations with and you live in North America, this is a great deck for that. Another deck that I worked with a lot during the month of May and found incredibly beautiful and very nurturing to work with is the Numinous Tarot. This is by Noel Arthur Heimpel. And it's just an absolutely wonderful deck. It's an extremely inclusive deck. And it's beautifully illustrated. I wasn't sure how I was going to get along with it because it has very different suits in this deck. So it's candles instead of wands, it's vials instead of cups, it's tomes instead of pentacles. So, you know, pentacles are big books, which I was a little unsure about. And then the swords are bells, which is another thing that I was unsure about. You know, I know sound travels through the air, and so you can kind of see that association between bells and air, but I wasn't entirely sure how I would feel about it, but I've discovered that actually those associations work really well for me. And in particular, I think that there's some incredibly wonderful cards, you know, for the use of tomes as pentacles. There's one in particular, I should see if I can find it. It's come up for me a couple times, actually. Here it is. The Six of Tomes. So this is the Six of Pentacles, and it's a little free library is how it's depicted. So again, showing that, you know, books as a material good, in addition to, you know, being something that is full of ideas, it's also something that exists in the material world, and showing that sort of inflow and outflow of material support and how that is balanced via this little free library. I really, really love that as a six of Pentacles or Six of Tomes in this instance. So this has been a wonderful, beautiful deck. I've really loved it. Again, like I said, I wasn't completely sure about it. I have to credit Laura from Aquamarine 18. It was seeing this deck on her channel. I had kind of gone back and watched through all of her deck collection videos that she had done several months back, and I'd seen this deck a couple of times, but for some reason seeing it on her channel was the moment that I was like, yeah, I gotta have that. So I ordered it and I absolutely love it. So again, that is the Numinous Tarot. So another deck that I got during the month of March and have been really enjoying working with, and here I go, I'm gonna make an attempt at pronouncing French again, is L'Oracle des Reflets. So this is a deck by a creator, her name is Celia Millisville. Again, probably pronouncing that wrong. Please don't laugh at me. I'm really sorry. I'm so bad at French. But this is an oracle deck. So yeah, I will admit that I have completely broken my oracle buying moratorium during COVID because I just kept seeing oracles that I really, really loved and wanted. So that's just where we are. That's like where we are on the oracle front. I've bought a few new oracle decks, even though I was not supposed to, but you know what? I'm going to cut myself a little slack. So this deck is incredibly beautiful. It's a really wonderful oracle deck. In terms of tone, it reminds me a lot of the Algariel divination cards. I don't know, maybe I just like French oracle decks. I don't know. But it reminds me a lot of that in terms of the way that the cards are set up in the sort of watercolory kind of very sort of pensive tone of it. So anyway, so those are the backs. Again, this is part of the reason why I bought it, because it has these like Pisces backs. But anyway, it's all done. I think these are tea-dyed papers that she then did drawings on top of, and I love the effect of it. I love the artwork. I think it's really beautiful. So I've actually loved working with this one. I did do a full walkthrough of this, which I'll probably post at some point. You know, let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that, because I did film it and I haven't posted it yet. So but this deck is so beautiful, and it has that feeling to it, again, similar to the Algariel divination cards. And so it is an oracle deck that I have been connecting to quite strongly, and I really, really love it. So that is, again, L'Oracle des Reflets. Like, oh my God, so bad. So a couple of other decks that I do just want to give a quick shout out to, because I've talked about them both before, but in all honesty, they are some of my most consistent daily or weekly deck practices, and it feels weird to not mention them in my favorites when I use them literally every day all the time. So one of those is the Art of Life Tarot, which I keep on my desk. I have a home office, and so I work from home and I keep this on my desk all the time. I draw a card from it every day, and it's just a combination of an artwork and a quote. And I love this deck. I keep track of what I draw. The quotes are very meaningful, and it's a beautiful deck. I love the choices of artworks, and I really love this one. And like I said, I literally use it every day, so it feels weird that I don't mention it in my favorites, because I've been using it every day for almost a year since I started working from home. So yeah, so this is an absolutely wonderful deck that I really, really do love. The other one that I want to mention that has become a very consistent weekly practice for me has been the Cup of Contemplation cards by Julie Rose, our very own Peekaboo Rose from Tarot Tube, one of my absolute favorite people in the Tarot Tube community and a very dear friend. I love this deck. I draw a new card from it every week. I have my little magnet board up in my bedroom that I keep cards pinned to. So I have a card from this pinned up all the time, and I just draw a new one every week. It gives me something to journal about, something to think about, just an important question to be asking myself. And so this has become another one of my most regular deck practices. So again, it felt like something that should go in my favorites every once in a while. Like, I probably won't mention it every month, but because I literally use it all the time, I did want to mention it. So in terms of books, I did not get a ton of reading done during the month of May. It was a tough month again. So I did do some reading. I did start working through Astrology for Real Life by Teresa Reed, who is also the Tarot Lady on Instagram, if you follow her on Instagram. But so she has created this book called Astrology for Real Life. So I did, do my chart. Like, I'm a total noob at astrology. I know very little about it at all. So, I've started working through this. I've gotten through some of like the early basic chapters, and now it's getting to the point where it's gotten kind of like complicated and I'm like, oh my god, I was told there would be no math. So I'm gonna keep working through it, because there's obviously a lot more for me to understand. But obviously astrology can get quite complicated, and even sort of the basics to understand are a lot to understand. So but it is something that I really want to learn about. So I have been enjoying working through that book. I think as far as an astrology book goes, in terms of like a learning exercise, it's very much a workbook in a lot of ways. There's a lot of places to write things in and analyze your own chart, and so it's really cool in the way that it's set up, and I've been learning a ton from it. But it's getting to the point where we're getting into like transits and things, and it's like getting complicated. Houses, and probably for normal people who know anything about astrology, they're like, houses, that's like super basic. And I'm like, I don't know very much about it. So it starts to get complicated because I don't like entirely understand all of it. So yeah, so I'm trying to learn more and working my way through it, and just kind of taking my time working my way through it. I've also been reading this book called Cork Dork, which is a nonfiction book about wine and about the world of sommeliers and, those people who like try to become master sommeliers, where they can like taste a sip of wine and know literally which bank of a river it was grown on at the particular place in Bordeaux, where it was grown, those kinds of things, like super crazy wine people. So I'm reading that book as well. It's quite interesting, actually. As a person myself who just likes yummy wine and is completely like not educated about it, it's been very interesting to learn more about what that world is like. So a final book that I did read and really learn some stuff from is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I'm sure that folks have seen this book being discussed a lot recently, in the wake of everything that has gone on, the protests following the death of George Floyd, and everything that's been happening in America. I think this book has basically gone back up to the top of the bestseller lists. I will say that as far as a sort of introductory text for white people on how to confront your own privilege without getting defensive and without making everything about you, it's a really good book on those topics. It is a starting point. It is a starting point. It's not like you read just that book and then you're done. It's basically a way to find your way into, as a white person, into discussions of anti-racism and be able to face those discussions again while being aware of your own privilege, being able to confront your own privilege, and being able to approach things without fragility, defensiveness, being actually willing to get in and do the real work and be accountable for your own mistakes and, all of those things. So from that standpoint, it is a really good sort of intro book. It's like Racism 101 for white people, really. And So it's a good book and everybody should read it, but it should be the first book they read and not the last book they read. So in terms of TV, TV that I particularly enjoyed during the month of May, I did finish watching The Last Dance on ESPN, which was that documentary series about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s, and it was really fun, and especially when it started getting into, you know, the NBA Finals in 97 and 98 when they were playing the Jazz, because one of the players on the Utah Jazz was like our big hero from my alma mater where I went to college, and I was in college at the time, and so I just remember being, you know, really excited for those particular final series, and you know, it's all stuff that I remember so clearly. So it was a really fun, interesting, nostalgic documentary to watch. Other TV that I watched and enjoyed, I always watch Outlander, and that finished up during the month of May, so I did watch that. I also watched The Plot Against America. I have dinner with my parents once a week, and we generally tend to like have a series that we're watching together that we watch after dinner when I go over to their house for dinner once a week. And so we watched The Plot Against America, which is a miniseries on HBO. It's really good. It's based on a Philip Roth book that I did read when it came out, which was back in like 2005. But it's basically an alternate history of what the United States would have looked like if Charles Lindbergh had become president instead of FDR during World War II, and you know, what might have happened if we had anti-Semites in charge of the White House, and isolationists, you know, not wanting to get us into World War II, and what would have happened to the Jewish community in the United States if that had happened. And it's a really good series. It was a really good book as well. So that was something that was really great to watch, very unsettling, very relevant to the present time, and I do recommend The Plot Against America. It was very good. And then finally, I have continued to watch The Simpsons as my comfort TV, although we are getting into the dark times when The Simpsons had some really rough years around season 12 and season 13. So that was when it was kind of not very good. So, you know, I'm gonna try to power through and keep going, but I'm kind of in the dregs right now. So moving on from books and TV to other topics, another favorite that I do want to mention, because this is another thing that's really a perennial favorite, but that I don't talk about very often, and that is my Sips By box. So this is a subscription box, which is a tea subscription box. So once a month, you get a box of different teas to try, and you generally get 4 different teas in your box, and you can, you know, tell them whether you like green tea, black tea, herbal tea. Do you want caffeine? Do you not want caffeine? Do you prefer loose leaf tea? Do you prefer bag tea? All of those kinds of things. You know, there's like a little profile you fill out, you know, sort of like Stitch Fix or something like that, where you sort of tell them what you're interested in. And then every month you get this box of tea sent to you. And again, it's usually 4 teas, and then there's like 4 servings of each of those teas. And I drink a lot of tea, so I love my Sips By box. It's only like $15 a month, I think, which is a pretty good deal for a subscription box. And I have to say that for the amount of fun that I get out of it as a person who loves tea, it's a great deal. And like I said, you get a lot of different kinds of tea to try. And like I said, I love tea. I drink it a lot. I like loose leaf tea. I like bag tea. I like all kinds of green, black, and herbal teas, white tea. You know, like you get some like mate or yerba tea, like there's other kinds of herbs that you get beyond just regular tea. So it's just a lot of fun, and I love it. I've been subscribed to it now for, I want to say, since sometime last fall, and I would never dream of discontinuing it, because honestly, I get so much fun out of it every month when I get my new box of Sips By teas, and I do drink them all. So it's been really great. All right, so as always, I do want to include in my favorites some YouTube favorites and shout out some channels that I've really been enjoying. So one of the ones that I want to shout out is Fathom 5 Tarot. So this is a channel I completely had been unaware of, and discovered her from a hashtag that I had started, which I'll actually just refer folks to that video as well, because I would really love it if more people did this hashtag. I think it's kind of interesting actually. But anyway, so she did a response to that hashtag, and that's how I found her, and she's fabulous and has a lot of interesting content. So really wanted to give a shout out to Fathom 5 Tarot. I also want to shout out Heidi Did What. She cracks me up. She has been doing responses to the 31 Days of Witchcraft challenge that was started by Heather Carter, another channel that I absolutely love. But I have been really enjoying Heidi's responses. It's been great to see her making more videos, and she's just a hugely enjoyable person to watch, so wanted to give her a shout out. I also want to shout out Tarot Your Truth with Jade. I can't believe that I haven't given her a shout out yet, but her content is really wonderful. She has a great channel. She does a lot of deck walkthroughs and things like that, so a really, really cool channel. She also has been doing some videos about sort of tutorials on how to make tarot, like knitted tarot bags, which is really cool. And then I finally, another channel that I totally thought that I had shouted out ages ago and I hadn't, which is ridiculous because I love her, is Science to Soul Tarot with Jen. So she has just a fantastic personality and a wonderful channel, and I love watching her content, so I gotta give a big shout out to Jen. So those are some of the channels that I've been really enjoying. As always, I do, you know, really want to encourage folks to go check these out and give them some love, and you know, really enjoy what they are offering, because they're all offering, you know, fantastic stuff. So anyway, so those are my shout outs for the month of May. So the final thing that I want to talk about is something upcoming that I'm really excited about, and a study that I'm going to be embarking on and I'm really looking forward to, and that is studying runes. So it's something I've been interested in for a long time, and I have just always had, you know, kind of a really strong pull towards studying runes. And then a couple of things sort of happened in tandem to really kind of get me excited about it. So the first thing is that Nina from Shuffle Tarot, wonderful Nina from Shuffle Tarot, published her rune deck, which is called Rune Spirals. So this is the guidebook and this is the deck. So I did get her deck and guidebook. And then the other thing that happened is that Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, she has a Facebook group, and she posted in her Facebook group this picture of some runes that she got, which are vintage China runes. The runes are cut from these pieces of vintage China, so they have the China pattern on the back, and then the, you know, the actual runes are incised in and, you know, gilded or added silver or, you know, whatever. And so they're these incredibly wonderful vintage China runes. Now, if you know anything about me, I love China. I love old China. I collect it. It's one of my favorite things. And so when I saw these vintage China runes, I like lost my mind and needed to get some. And so I did. And so the other thing is that Dawn Michelle is also going to be hosting, I believe on our Facebook group, I think the sort of details are still getting worked out, but a rune study group. So I need to show off my China runes here. It's probably hard to see the pattern on the back because it's white on white, and probably it's also blurry. But this is what they look like. They're super pretty. So anyway, so I'm super excited about my new set of vintage China runes. Now these were ordered from, they're handmade, they're ordered from a shop called Forge of the Phoenix. So I will put a link down below to that shop where you can buy these vintage China rune sets, because, you know, they are handmade, they're really, really wonderful, and I'm so excited that I have a set of them. So anyway, it felt like there was a whole lot of synchronicity around all this, because it was like, you know, first Nina published her deck, and then I saw those vintage China runes on Dawn Michelle's Facebook group, and then the day that I was literally sitting on my phone on makeplayingcards.com looking at Nina's deck, and I pretty much decided to buy it, but I was trying to decide whether or not I wanted the tin, which, as you can see, I did end up getting the tin. But anyway, so I'm sitting there on makeplayingcards.com looking at Nina's deck, and this Facebook message comes through on my phone, and the Facebook message is from Julie from Peekaboo Rose, and it says, "Convince me not to get runes." And I was like, girl, you caught me at the wrong time, because like, check out what I'm doing right now. I'm literally buying Nina's deck. And so then I ended up getting the vintage China runes, and then Dawn Michelle is now starting the study group and everything. So it's all coalescing into, oh my God, Rune June. It's Rune June, you guys. Anyway, so I'm gonna have Rune June. I'm super excited. So anyway, those are my favorites for May. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and be well. See you later. Bye.